Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for our preview stream ahead of a semi-final. When was the last time we played a semi-final? I think must have been 2021, no?
Yeah, when we made both domestic cup finals.
Oh, but that would have been 2022, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 2022. It's been a minute, but not as really long as it feels, because my days, the last, 2 years, I say that even though we've made finals in those past 2 years, they haven't been fun. Now, there is no guaranteeing that we go to the final and actually win the thing, because very good chance we play Liverpool again. And first of all, we know our record against them at Wembley. Well, maybe I shouldn't say at Wembley, just in finals recently. But we have a big semi-final coming up tomorrow. It's only the first leg, so even if things go wrong tomorrow, it can still be rectified at Stamford Bridge a week or 2 weeks later. I can't even remember what exactly the date of the second leg is. But the pressure is on, because if we somehow flop this, I think the fan base, but I also think the ownership, that will not go well. If we flop this against the championship team in a semi-final, it will not be good. Before I get to Charlie, I want to say this. With the news has just come out that Franz Beckenbauer, German football legend, has sadly passed away yesterday, and it's been made official today. So rest in peace and condolences to him and his family. A true football legend. Obviously, I guess maybe a little bit lesser known a little bit in the UK than maybe in the German-speaking areas where I'm from. But regardless, rest in peace to him. And, well, what else can I say? It's always a bit... It's sad when you have to say things like that, but at the same time, I'm like, well, we can't be depressed for the whole stream now. So let's take it on a positive note. He did a lot for football. He did a lot for, a lot for football to move on, to get to modern times. He was, for example, one of the people that got the World Cup 2006 to Germany, which, of course, he's German. That was the main intention. But when you look at the World Cups of recent times, I feel like that 2006 World Cup was kind of like the first of modern World Cups in a way. Like, until then, it felt a bit different. I feel like 2006, if you go back to that now, doesn't feel too different from now. But 2002, that feels older. I don't know if that's just me. But hey, Charlie, first of all, thank you for coming back on. I appreciate it very, very much. Big semi-final tomorrow. The pressure is on. Not that necessarily the pressure is on in the sense of our results have been poor recently, because if anything, they've been really good over the last few weeks. Obviously, that Christmas Eve defeat still hurts. But otherwise, we've been getting good results for a hot minute now. You are at most games, not quite all of them as the last couple of weeks, but still at most games. How did you take the Preston game? Because the Preston game, usually I would say it has no real relevance, but here it actually does, because they play in the same division as Middlesbrough. They're almost in the same position in the table as Middlesbrough. So really, if we do anything remotely like in the second half against Preston, we should be absolutely battering them, shouldn't we?
Look, for sure. Middlesbrough aren't as bad as people think. Villa only got a last-minute winner there in the FA Cup third round at the weekend. I mean, I don't know how rotated the sides were, so I didn't watch it back. But obviously they gave them a close game. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. But like, if it was a one-off game, I'd maybe be a little bit more apprehensive. But the fact we've got two legs, barring an absolute miracle, I just don't see how over two legs we don't win this game. That might be going in a bit too overconfident, but I just can't see how with two attempts that we could. I mean, you don't even necessarily need to win both matches either. So,
also having the second leg at home is also
and second leg at home as well. I just don't see it. I mean, yes, if we play how we did in the first half against Preston again tomorrow night, then it could be some problems. I think Middlesbrough are slightly better than Preston. I mean, they made the playoffs last year. Carrick's doing a half decent job there. This season, perhaps not doing quite as well as they were last season. But away games anywhere are tough. So we're going to have to put a strong side out. And you know what? I think Pochettino will do that. We've seen the domestic cups this season. He's gone strong sides in pretty much all the rounds. So I don't expect that to change tomorrow. To be honest, even if he wanted to change a few things, because we've got so many injuries, there's not really much that can be changed anyway. So regardless of whether he wants to go strong or not, we have to go strong with it. If we can perform anywhere near the second half against Preston, then you would expect it to be relatively straightforward. But we know sort of football don't really work out like that. But I'd be shocked if we didn't get a win tomorrow.
No,
considering we're 6 wins in 9 from all comps, from 6 wins from our last 9. We would have been unbeaten in December, I think, if Sterling could square a pass rather than being a selfish bastard, basically. So, which is not something you'd expect to say at Chelsea. Sort of one defeat in December is pretty good going.
It is pretty good going, to be fair. Also unbeaten and completely all of wins. How many games did we play in January so far? What was it, 2, 3?
One, mate. The Preston one was the first game of the year.
Oh yeah, you're right. Well, still,
we're still unbeaten this year. We're unbeaten this year.
Arsenal haven't won a game in 2024.
No, exactly, mate. We are unbeaten this year.
Exactly. It's not as easy as they make it out to be. But yeah, no, exactly like you said, you hit the nail on the head. Like, if we lose this or if we somehow don't make it through this, it's an absolute shambles, especially because we have 2 legs. Now, the game specifically tomorrow, I'm not necessarily that crazily confident that we'll necessarily win or win big. I think we will win, but I wouldn't be like too shocked if that somehow ends in a draw. But then I still back us very comfortably to turn that around at the Bridge. But obviously for the mood and everything else going on, it would be good if we already win the first leg. You touched on it there in terms of strong 11s. Obviously tomorrow has to be, and like you touched on, there's no other choice anyway, but it will be a strong team. That's the only thing that bothered is maybe not the right word, but I wasn't really too big a fan of for the team against Preston. That I'm like, we have a semi-final in 3 days. Why are you playing so many of the best players and most important players against Preston? I didn't really see that. Even in hindsight, I don't fully understand that, if I'm being perfectly honest, because I don't think it's as in cup games against lesser teams. It's not as simple as play your better players, and you play a better game. I don't think that's how it works, because often the better players, they feel a bit like, well, they don't really take the challenge as seriously against lower league oppositions. While if you give multiple Alfie Gilchrists the opportunity, for them, this is a huge game. This is a big moment. Some of them potentially the biggest game of their lives until that point. So they will be right up for it, at least as much as the opponent. Of course, an Enzo or a Caicedo, or I don't know what the best examples are. For them, this is not a huge game. So that's why I always feel play a few youngsters again in these lesser opposition, lesser rounds of the cup. But tomorrow, even if it's a lower league opposition, it's a semi-final. Yeah. Not messing about. You play your strongest team and you don't even ask 2 questions about it, seriously. I want to touch on a couple of things before we get into talking about Middlesbrough a bit more, Charlie, because obviously you were at the Preston game as well. Everyone is kind of aware that the first half was a stinker.
Mate, it's one of the most bored I've ever been at a Chelsea game, that first half. Like, no joke, mate. I was like thinking, I almost wanted to go home at half time. Yeah. It was that bad.
No, you're right, 100%. And in the second half, I think people think, the second half was great. The second half only kind of became great after we scored, because I also felt
that was always going to be the case, though, wasn't it?
The second half were poor. I don't know if you felt that.
Yeah, it was always going to be the case, though. I think it was always going to be one of them, like, once we got the first goal, we were going to get a couple. And arguably, mate, 5 or 6 wouldn't have actually flattered us if that had ended up being the score. We could have easily got 5 or 6. I think it was always going to be the case once the breakthrough came. I mean, to be honest, mate, Preston offered very, very little going forward at all. A couple of shots that were straight at Petrovic with no real power on them. They weren't exactly offering anything. And yeah, it was always a case of once we got the first goal, there was no doubt in my mind that we were going to win that game.
Exactly. I had the same opinion, really. I mean, it's a tricky one because obviously Broja's header was fantastic, but after that, it's like, were we even that good? Because we scored from a corner, we scored from a free kick, which were both great goals individually, but they're set pieces. We didn't create them as such. And then the last one, I guess it was a decent goal in the end, but it was a bit lucky not to be offside. It was a bit of a, ball bouncing around the box for it to fall to Enzo. So where do you stand on where we are as a club at the moment? Because when you think back to September, October time, we played well pretty often and failed to get results that we often deserved. And now we're in a position, I'm not necessarily saying we didn't deserve results that we've gotten, but there have been games where we certainly didn't play as well as we did much earlier in the season, but got much better results. So where do you then stand on that? Because when we sat there in the beginning of the season, we're like, well, if the performances are good, but the results aren't there, the results will eventually come. So now if we flip that, if you're like, okay, the results are good, the performances are not great, shouldn't that in theory mean the results will eventually stop coming if we don't start playing better? Or do you not see it that way?
Certainly, potentially, you could see that. You could certainly look at it in a way where, it's unsustainable to keep winning You know, you see it with a lot of teams that get a lot of last-minute winners or late goals. It's unsustainable to keep winning in that way. So I'd agree on that front. But the fact for me is like we're not really getting a load of late goals. We're not really scoring like last-minute winners. So I wouldn't look at it as unsustainable. I'd look at it as like, do you know what? We should be grateful that we're just winning again and actually picking up a few wins on the bounce. You know, we've picked up quite a few home wins recently, which has certainly been few and far between. Over the last 12 months or so. And I think we're kind of in a place now where, for me, I sort of maybe expected us to be in terms of like maybe we had to start sacrificing performance just to grind results out. And I'm right now with where we are with this team and where this kind of project is and all that sort of thing. I'm not that asked about the performances at the moment. Just win. You know, and that's kind of what we're doing right now. That's not to say that the performances have been dreadful. They haven't. You know, as you mentioned, mate, we've played a lot better this season than in the games we've won recently and lost games or not won them. So, you know, I think we'd all rather be playing well in order to win. So for me, mate, I think, you know, we're in a decent run of form at the moment. Yes, you could look at the opposition, you know, maybe we haven't played any decent teams, but that's kind of irrelevant. You can only win only play what's in front of you. Yeah. So yeah, mate, I think we're on a positive run of form, and you know, we can kickstart this year with some decent momentum as well. I mean, no disrespect to the teams that we're coming up against, but you know, the first four or five fixtures this month, we had Preston at the weekend, we've got Middlesbrough tomorrow night. And we've got Fulham at home on the Saturday. I think you've got the second leg the following midweek or whatever it is, or whatever. And then you've got a fourth round of the Cup, which we don't know who that's going to be yet. So arguably, mate, January, realistically, is a very decent month up until the very end. There's no reason why we shouldn't be winning like at least the next 3 games. Obviously, FA Cup fourth round will be, I think, between the Middlesbrough second leg and that'll be the weekend before the Liverpool game. I think the FA Cup fourth round will be.
I think so. And because I think this weekend that would have been here, do we have like this wannabe break here? Because obviously there is a break here as well.
No, mate. I actually think, mate, the FA Cup fourth round will be is going to be that weekend after it's going to be the weekend after that Fulham game, and it'll be a few days before the second leg of the semi-final.
Interesting. Why wouldn't we have a weekend that game then between the 23rd and the 31st though?
I don't know. Let me just have a quick look. FA Cup.
Because isn't there is every Prem team has one weekend off in January, don't they? So one of them will be that as well.
Yeah, potentially. Mate, FA Cup fourth round. Yeah, the fourth round, mate, is the 27th.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that weekend.
So that's even after what we're looking at.
Yeah, so Saturday the 27th.
Okay, yeah, it's between Middlesbrough second leg and the Liverpool game. You're right.
Yeah, so it's the weekend before the Liverpool game, yeah. So, I mean...
We have the weekend before Middlesbrough at home, we have that off.
Yeah.
There you go. Maybe it would have been the replay weekend, potentially?
I think that could be replays that weekend, although replays tend to be midweek, don't they?
They usually are. I guess if we had a replay, I don't know when we'd play it, considering we play midweek this week and midweek next week.
But so the fourth round is the weekend before Liverpool in the midweek.
There you go. All right, we have that sorted then. Just quickly to go back to what we've been talking about in terms of results. I agree in terms of just be happy that we're winning. It's not really that much about performance, because what we need is to almost win our way back to confidence, if that makes sense. Because so many players in this team have not really experienced winning at Chelsea very often, because we've essentially signed pretty much every player bar 3 in the last 18 months, 12 months, right? Well, now 18 months, I guess. And in that space, we've not won a lot of games. So I think that is one of the most important things. That's also why I think this League Cup is so important. That's why I think if we win that, it could be a big deal. A bit like that 2005 League Cup that we won. I'm not saying it will lead us to winning back-to-back league titles. By no means am I trying to say that. But it gives this young crop of players at Chelsea, this completely new crop of players, the taste of winning. And I think that could be potentially what we need to like chase things a bit more with a bit more conviction, with maybe a bit less errors, because I don't know, maybe that clicks something in the head, and like to win you need to be perfect. Otherwise it doesn't work. But what I slightly disagree with is that there is a limit to that. Like you can't just forever grind out results and never play well. Again,
No.
I'm not saying we never play well recently, but at some point, I feel like we need to fix the issues that we have. And my main issue at the moment is we don't really seem to get our midfield working. And when I say that, I don't mean we lose too many duels. I don't mean we can't have possession. I think as a collective, I just don't feel, it doesn't feel like a midfield that costs £225 million. And that's only Enzo and Caicedo, let alone whoever else you add as a number 10, right? That's my biggest issue. And we've discussed this in the post-match stream of the last one. There's a lot of ways to think about why this problem exists, right? My main issue with Pochettino, aside from a few, I don't know, questionable remarks where I'm like, why are you thinking that? Why are you choosing that? I still don't understand why why Gilchrist had to come off for Thiago Silva. Again, bring Thiago Silva on, but why not for Disasi? Why did it have to be Gilchrist, who was the best player on the pitch until then? I don't understand that. But hey, it doesn't matter in the end. You won 4-0, so you can't really question it. I understand. But my issue, to me, on the pitch, it feels like we don't have patterns. It feels like he puts the players on the pitch and then tells them how to defend. But then in terms of attacking, it's just like, do what you do. That's what it feels like. But the problem is that's one thing. To do that in the final third, for example, managers like Jose Mourinho, he's also like that. His way of thinking is, my job is to get you into the final third, then it's your job to do something with that. Fair enough. Pep Guardiola is different, Arteta is different, even a Jurgen Klopp is a bit different, Xabi Alonso, of course. Even Thomas Tuchel has a bit of that as well. I bring you into the final third, you do your thing then. But my problem with Poch is how we get through the middle third of the pitch, how we get from defense to attack, because it doesn't feel like we're working it right, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because we don't get the ball to attackers in easy positions. Like when you look at the Preston game, Mudryk is basically at the halfway line every time. He receives the ball.
I think that's
doesn't get it a lot anyway, but receives it, and then he's 60 meters from goal. How are we expecting the attackers to do anything? We have a £25 million midfield, and they don't really help us in attack, and they don't really help us in defense. Sorry, obviously I know Enzo scored, but let's take that lucky goal out of it a little bit. We need to figure something out how to make this midfield work, because I refuse to believe that they're not better than this, and I also refuse to believe that they can't work together. I just can't believe
they absolutely can work together. I think it's like with anything, these things do take time. It's been 6 months. They've not played.
6 months is quite a lot.
Yeah, they've not played. They haven't played.
The managers, how quickly
they haven't played every game together. I also think, like, in regards to Enzo specifically, yes, we know that he's much better deployed deeper, and his range of passing from deep is one of his big qualities. But what can you do when he picks up the ball from deep and you've got wingers not making movements, not making runs, not in advanced positions? You've got fullbacks doing the same thing. You pick the ball up and he looks, and like the Preston game was a prime example. He just had to go for quite a few hit and hopes over the top, and they ended up going out of play because there's just no movement and nothing around him. So look, can he do a bit more in general? Yeah, probably he can. But I think there's only so much you can do when your biggest strength is kind of playmaking from deep, and your teammates are giving you no options to pick out. We've seen Enzo, if there's options, he'll find them. We've seen, assists that he's made, great passes he's made for goals. It's just, I think it's particularly tricky for him because, it doesn't matter how good you are. Like if you haven't got players in space making those runs, making that movement, like you're pretty stuck, which is why you end up going backwards or sideways or trying a really ambitious ball just to try and make something happen. So I think that's one thing that definitely needs to improve. I actually think Caicedo has been a lot better than a lot of fans think, and the media certainly make out. I actually think he's done pretty well. I thought he was good. I thought he was good on Saturday. Yeah, it's just going to take time. I mean, everyone was poor first half.
Yeah, that's fair.
I just think it highlighted the first half, 100% highlighted, and even into the second half. Like, people might not like Conor Gallagher, but when he doesn't play, you notice there's so much missing from the midfield in terms of press from the front, in terms of energy, in terms of just like making things happen. So look, I'm not saying that Conor Gallagher is like the Chelsea saviour or anything like that, but right now you notice, mate, that when he doesn't play, there's a big hole in that midfield. And right now you'd have to say he's kind of the glue maybe that's holding the midfield together. I'm not saying that Enzo and Caicedo can't play without him, but you certainly notice how different it is when Gallagher's not there. I mean, look at United away. I'm not saying we would have won that game if Gallagher had played, but midfield,
it wouldn't have been as bad.
The midfield certainly would have been a lot better. I mean, Enzo and Caicedo in that United game, probably the two of the worst performances from those guys, probably in a long while. So, look, I get it, mate. People expect more. We all want more from them, but I think there are some circumstances that are legitimate as to why there are a few struggles. You can look at the tactical setup of the team.
Can I quickly touch on something you said a minute ago in terms of Enzo being better at being deployed deeper? But when you think back to last season, he was being deployed deeper. He essentially came in and replaced Jorginho. He essentially acted as a regista almost, both on the Potter and even on the Lampard. Played him as a lone six of a midfield three, often in particular Lampard, right? And then we still had Enzo doing well and spray his passes, and we all praised that. But at the time, I mean, maybe we were all just wrong at the time, but still at the time, I feel like pretty much everyone I ever talked to and I ever saw say anything on Twitter was pretty much in agreement that to get the most out of Enzo, we need to allow, we need to allow him to be a little bit higher as well. And now we do that. And now we say, no, the problem is we're playing him too high. He should be deeper.
Well, when he's playing in the 10, that's ridiculous. That's way
of course. That's not even up to debate.
I actually think that like what will be a big benefit, and as obviously it's just typical that Lavia just can't stay fit. But I actually think with like a more out and out six behind him and Caicedo, I actually think that will do wonders.
But don't you think Caicedo was bought to be that?
But if you look at Caicedo, mate, I don't think he's like been an out and out like proper number six. I look at him as more of a Kante type where he can do that, but like he does all the dirty work, all the hard yards up and down the pitch.
But does it then make sense to have Caicedo and Enzo together? If Caicedo isn't the real six, doesn't it really put the whole recruitment plan into question where you're like, but then you don't really want Enzo and Caicedo in the same team if Caicedo isn't the six either?
For me, mate, I think what I really want to see is when Lavia's fit again, we need to see, and this is not like a slight on Conor Gallagher. Well, I just want to see how an Enzo, Caicedo, Lavia midfield trio.
But where does Nkunku go? Because I don't really want Nkunku long term as a striker.
No, and that's an issue in itself. I mean,
that's why it's the problem, right?
Yeah, unless you're just going to play a pivot, and Lavia is going to be a rotation option. We're going to have hopefully have more games next season and whatnot. You need squad depth, strength in depth, or whatever. There's possibly that scenario. But I agree with you. You go three in the middle, and I think a lot of Chelsea fans would like to see that midfield that I've just talked about. But then, if you play that, it brings problems in itself because you've got players like Mudryk and Madueke doing well on the wings at the moment. Cole Palmer would have to play as a winger in a 4-3-3. He would have to play in a wide position. So you going Palmer one side and Nkunku on the left or something, and then someone up top? Or do you play Nkunku as a 9, which is not really his position?
And then you don't have Mudryk in the team if you're playing Nkunku on the left, and that's puts that quite signing into question, right?
It brings its own problems, but. I mean, look, it's nice problem to have, I think, but I do agree. Like, you almost feel like there needs to be a 3-man midfield, and I know there kind of is, but let's be honest, Gallagher's playing more as a number 10.
Yeah. Don't you think that there is, because essentially what I was trying to get at with last season, he was deep, and we said we need him further forward sometimes, and now he's often too high, and we're like, we need Enzo deeper so he can, get his passing really and implement that in the game, but. I think no one can tell me that there's not been midfields in the past where it's just a bit of a fluid positioning, where in possession, you let Enzo drop a bit when we're in possession deeper, Enzo drops, helps dictate it from the back, spray the balls. And then as we progress up the pitch as a team, Enzo then goes higher. While if we lose the ball, Enzo drops, and Caicedo does the opposite direction and is aggressive on the press. Where if they play next to each other, I don't understand why it needs to be one deeper than the other the whole time. Why can't it be fluid? Like that's a thing that midfields mix around fluidly. Like when you had Kante and Matic next to each other, it wasn't that clear. Like Kante didn't drop in any moment, and Kante didn't permanently go up the pitch. Even when you had Cesc and Kante. Sure, Kante ran around, but Cesc still got us goals every now and again and stuff and was up the pitch. It can be like, as obviously they need to understand each other. There needs to be a connection. But I think the system, just the way we play it, I mean, Max put this here. We need to play Caicedo as Brighton did last season.
We're a different team, though.
We don't play anywhere. We don't play like Brighton. It's not that Caicedo doesn't play like he did at Brighton. Is we as a team don't play like Brighton. I think we just need to get a different structure and systematic plan of how we operate with our midfield. Because exactly like you said, I mean, there was another comment here by Vic earlier, which again is to me so far off the mark. Like the problem about Enzo and Caicedo is not getting enough goals or is not getting enough assists. That's not what I'm asking from them. What I'm asking from them is to control the play, open the play, and put our attackers into positions where they can do something with it. But the way it feels at the moment, I'm not saying Enzo never does that. Of course he does. And Caicedo also sometimes does it. But as a general point, we give the ball to our wingers 30, 40 meters away from goal. The only ways our strikers touch the ball is if when they drop 30 meters deep. It doesn't matter whether that's Jackson or Broja. Sure, we play in behind hit and hope passes every now and again. But then even when you do that, you're kind of, whoever receives that ball is then has to do the rest on their own because there's no one else with them. They're the only ones that made the run, received the ball, and then either they have to wait, and then the opposition is in position again anyway, or they do it by themselves. But the problem that for me we don't really have is like, let the midfield actually work and not have the wingers constantly, or at least one of them constantly be so far back. And really where that problem stems from is the fact that we don't have fullbacks properly. Like, if the fullbacks don't push up, that means the midfielders need to drop back because otherwise you don't have that wide creation, right? So there's a lot of problems. I just don't understand why Poch hasn't worked on those. Now, sure, the fullbacks he's somewhat forced upon him because of a lot of injuries. But then you look at the last game and I'm like, okay, Gilchrist is a centre-back and he can help out at right-back. But surely it's more logical to keep Colwell at left-back for another game and at least let Gusto play in his actual position rather than playing Gilchrist out of position and Gusto out of position. I just don't see the logic.
I actually thought the Gusto-Mudryk link-up in that Preston game was pretty decent. I
don't even disagree with that, but it's still an unnatural position for Gusto.
Yeah, I agree. But I think
as good as on the other side.
I know the fullbacks might not sort the midfield out necessarily, but I actually think like once, I know this is a big if, but once we actually have two fit functioning fullbacks in this team that can overlap our wingers, I actually think it will make a big difference. I think Mudryk with an overlapping fullback is going to be a different proposition than what we're seeing at the moment. I think we can probably say the same.
It needs to be a versatile fullback. It's no matter who the winger is, the fullback shouldn't always overlap. It needs to be. Sometimes overlap, sometimes come. Yeah, no, exactly. I agree with you. I'm just
or go as overlaps or goes inside or whatever it is. I think that will make a massive difference to this team for sure. But yeah, look, I think we're just having to, at the moment, we're just having to cope with what we've got. If we had more players available, then maybe we'd be able to try a few different things. There'd be a bit more cohesion in the team, a bit more chemistry and whatnot. But yeah, I just think, I don't know, mate. It's difficult right now. You can see that things aren't quite right. The balance is not quite right. Yeah. But I think there are some key components missing which are affecting that. It's not to say that we can't play better with what we've got, but I just think, particularly the fullbacks. Fullbacks in modern day football are so important. I think fullbacks have been so important to Chelsea over the years. And if you look at Pochettino's systems, fullbacks are so important to how he plays. Spurs, Walker and Danny Rose bombing on. That can't be underestimated. Yes, you could argue that he should be doing better potentially on the tactical side of the game. But right now, I think with a manager at Chelsea, given the situation at the club and all these new players coming in, your main focus for anything else has just got to be winning. And yeah, we can have complaints and criticism about the way the teams about the way the team's playing. But I think as fans, mate, for me, having gone through last season where we're losing pretty much every week, we just need to find a way to win, and I think the rest of it will work itself out. I know that might sound a little bit simplistic, but I think we will find solutions as players get more used to each other, as more key components of the team come back, as Poch gets more of an understanding with these players. I think, you'll start to see better performances.
Yeah, no, that is true. I want to touch on one more thing after that. I just want to highlight this again from Vic. First of all, I do think Enzo is a bit of a creator, but even still, that's not my point. Like, and people talk about when you find the 10, but the 10 is already part of the attack. The 10 is already a player that you need to put in position for the 10 to be able to play the last ball, right? That's what and we don't allow our 10 even to do that. Like, we can talk about maybe Gallagher isn't good enough for that, and Gallagher has the biggest chance creation and the most assists and all of those things for Chelsea anyway, but this season. But even still, I think what Enzo and Caicedo as a midfield need to do more is put the attack into better positions. There's also this comment from Joab, sorry if I butchered your name, but he says someone made the point that the space between Enzo and Caicedo is a bit too much, which makes it at times difficult for them to link up effectively. This is spot on, by the way, and not only in attack, I think also in defense. That's why people run through our midfield so easily all the time. Because either Enzo is too high or sometimes Caicedo is too high, and there's too big a gap. And maybe this worked with Kante, but as much as Caicedo maybe has a couple of hints of Kante, he's still not Kante. And the gap is absolutely something that also needs to be worked on. I fully agree. But one last thing on all of this with Poch and whatever else, Charlie. Do you sometimes, as of late, feel that Poch is not really working towards the long term anymore? Like at the beginning, that was that, and we saw that with Potter last season. But it feels to me a bit like the switch happened, and Poch is now doing the usual that happens at Chelsea when players get on, managers become, get under pressure, and then they only look for results and not really for the long term anymore. Because there's been decisions made recently where I'm like, why is Gusto playing 90 minutes? Gusto was injured, and ever since then, it's essentially playing 90 minutes every game. Where I'm like, this screams another injury coming soon down the road, and where I'm like, I know he needs the results, and I know us as fans, we also need the results from him because we've been very critical as it is, right? But I still think he doesn't feel like a manager that's looking for the long term. He doesn't feel no different to, if Jose was here right now, he would act no different to Pochettino right now. Like people say, oh, Jose isn't made for young players. First of all, he's learned that a bit at Roma, I'm very sure of that. But even without that, Poch isn't acting like I'm working towards the long term here. Now, I understand because of financial restrictions and, we need to get as high up the table as we can anyway. But I don't know. It just doesn't feel like he's acting as a project manager. Now, we can say Potter did, and that's why we ended up where we ended up with him. But I still think that makes more sense than now. Like, we're 10th. Okay, we're in a cup semi-final. That's good. For the cup semi-final and the final, obviously work for results no matter what. But struggling with young players at Roma. No, he's not struggling with young players at Roma. He's struggling. Isn't he fourth with Roma with no?
Mate, they're like eighth or something. But like literally,
I swear they were fourth 2 weeks ago.
No, but mate, the gap between fourth and ninth is about 4 points, and there's like 5 or 6 teams in the mix. So I think he's 3 points.
They
off
have
fourth.
Actually dropped to eighth, but I swear on my life, 2 weeks ago they were.
No, they were, mate. The table, those like.
But again, Roma have no money. Like they literally have zero money. So like. But anyway, I'm not even trying to say, Mourinho would be so much better. I'm just saying Pochettino isn't acting that much differently. And I don't know if that to me is already kind of the writing written on the wall that he won't last that long anyway, because otherwise he wouldn't have had this change of approach already.
Mate, do you know what it is like? I get what you're saying in terms of like, if you're a project manager or whatever, then you might, try and manage in a way to get the best out of the players. I hear what you're saying, but when you're at a club like Chelsea, it's not like you're at a smaller club and you can have the time and maybe the leeway to really work on your playing style and not pick up decent results for a while. Like for me, like mate, I don't blame him maybe potentially abandoning a few principles if that's what he is doing. I'm not saying he is, but for me, like at Chelsea at this point in time, yes, you want to build for the long term, but you have to be getting results in the short term as well. And if you have to sacrifice some of your long-term thinking, to get results in the short term, then so be it. I think he'll learn so much from this season, providing he makes it to the end, which I think he will and he should, because we have to do that. But yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, mate. But for me, you do have to get through. You do have to pick the results up. It's as simple as that. And, as a manager in this situation, if you've got to sacrifice a bit of your long-term thinking in order to get some short-term results and gain, then you absolutely have to do it.
Fair dues. Now, in some cases or some topics, I agree with that. In some others, it's a bit like for example, overplaying Nkunku already, for example. In that first game he came back, the fact that he played, nearly 80 minutes before he came off.
His first start.
Don't do that.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, why would you let him on the pitch? I know we need the result, but the result doesn't matter as much as health of the players. Like, when you have this injury crisis, you can't overdo it. I'm fearing that's currently what's happening with Gusto. I also feel a little bit that's happening with Chilwell and Disasi. Neither of them are ever being rested. I know they're centre backs, but God knows what's. And I know that's slightly forced on him because Badiashile can't stay fit, and Chalobah is God knows what's happened to him. Right? I get that, and Thiago Silva is 39, but even then, I still think he could be doing a few things a little bit differently. But hey, let's not get too hung up on that. Let's get into this topic because JC asked, did you already touch on Nkunku's injury? And no, we have not. Because, Charlie, we already kind of knew it the second he wasn't all of a sudden in the squad against Preston when the day before Poch said he would be.
Well, yeah, he said he wasn't going to. Yeah, he mentioned he wasn't going to. He mentioned he wasn't going to start, and then.
But he said he would be in the squad, and then wasn't.
Yeah, and then we got to the game, and he wasn't even in the squad. Look, we knew there was an issue. He's described it as a minor hip issue, and then you had that confusing stuff yesterday where you had one person saying he's going to be out for around 3 weeks with a hip issue. Then you have a couple of journalists from France saying that it was just a precaution and he'll definitely be in the squad for the next game, and that obviously isn't the case. I mean, I think Poch again today described it as a precaution, but he won't be in the Middlesbrough game, and then they're not sure about Saturday against Fulham. So I think the truth, mate, probably lies somewhere in between the two. He's obviously picked up an injury. It's nothing to do with his knee or anything. It's to do with his hip. So it's a different thing. So I guess that's good in a sense that, it's not that same injury that's re-aggravated again, which could have been more of a problem. At least that's also,
I'm not really sure if I'm allowed to say this publicly, but you won't know where I heard it from. So it's not like an injury that could be kind of like the reason for the hip injury is because of the knee. No, what happened is he clashed with Disasi and that injured his hip. So in training, it's a bit unfortunate. That is a bit better. And obviously yesterday we were like, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? We were all kind of losing our minds a little bit when that first report came out that he would be out for 3 weeks.
It was yesterday. Yeah, it seems ages ago, but it was yesterday.
Exactly. So yeah, but then we had another report by Fabrice Hawkins not long after, who said, "No, it's not that long." And now the way Poch phrased it in today's press conference is saying he won't be involved tomorrow, but he might be for Saturday, maybe the game after. So, I mean, how many times have we already heard that? Could still be 3 months until he's back, right? By them saying, "Oh, well, assessing game by game." But hey, it's not that serious. But it's still just. Like, it's just typical, isn't it, Charlie? Like, it's so frustrating. How can it be? He's finally back and a completely unrelated injury in training. Oh, my God.
But I've kind of just like, given up. Not really giving too much to this anymore. It's just like kind of numb to it. I expect this to happen now, mate. It's not really, once it keeps happening so often. Like, you could talk about it like all day and, you won't really get anywhere because... No, I don't think we have any idea. People always go on about the medical department. Like, medical department, I can understand to a degree if players are being rushed back too soon and they're re-injuring the same thing. But mate, part of me feels that maybe
that did happen with Reece and with
but we did have
and with
part of my like one sort of thought I kind of had was, I don't know if we've gone from one extreme to the other. We went under kind of Tuchel and stuff from rushing players back too quickly because of the lack of quality options. We desperately needed them. Now I feel we've gone to the other end of the spectrum where we're being overly cautious, which I understand, but I think we're being too cautious, on top of
it depends on how many players you have available, how cautious you can be.
I think we're being too cautious, and I don't know, like the fact we're maybe holding players back maybe a week or two just to absolutely make sure, whether that's planting a seed of doubt in their minds when they're playing on the pitch, they're not going into things with full effort. I don't know what it is, mate, but you could say medical department, you can say conditioning, you can say, are we doing too much work in the gym? Are these players carrying too much muscle mass? All these things that you can mention and talk about. Mate, none of us really know why. None of us know the answers. You'd like to think that, apart from trying to find a centre forward this month, that the club would have been and are continuing to try and find out why this is happening. Because yes, injuries are part and parcel of football, but there is there is no way that we should be having this many injuries this often to this many players, to key players. And this is not just a new thing this season. This has been happening for 2 or 3 years now. So this is not bad luck now. This is a recurring theme that is utterly ridiculous. And there's seemingly no one's found any answers as to why this is happening.
Exactly. I mean, there has been reports that Chelsea are internally actually quite happy with the changes they've made in the medical team, and that they think eventually that will also be able to see that. But I think part of the problem is the players we sign. You know, that some of them.
I refuse to believe we've signed all these players we've signed are injury prone.
No, not all of them, but certainly some of them have already had questionable injury records by the time we signed them. You look at Fofana, you look at Madueke, you look at Nkunku.
But to be fair, all Fofana
have had questionable injury records.
I mean, that major injury Fofana had was a broken leg. I wouldn't call broken leg injury prone because it was a horrendous challenge. But no, look, I get what you're saying. Some players did come with. But
there's a difference between injury prone and having a bad injury record. Like, you can have a bad injury record and still not be injury prone, but it's still not like, if you sign so many players, you should still not, even if you're right, it's not necessarily being injury prone, but it's still, there's a bit more risk attached to players that have had a lot of injuries. You look, there's some players who've never missed a game. Like Ivan Toney has missed one game one game in his life. He's missed through injury until this suspension, right? It's unbelievable when you compare that to some other players. One game in his life, it's mental, right? And then you compare it to flipping Reece James. It's not ideal. I don't fully agree with you that we don't rush players back. I think Ugochukwu was rushed back, had the same injury as well. By the way,
I agree on that one. That one I agree on, but there was no. I think even Pochettino said it himself.
There is always an academy player.
Well, there is, but I think Poch admitted himself afterwards that after that Wolves game that Ugochukwu was rushed back, but he obviously didn't trust. One of the academy midfielders, whether it's Leo Casteldine or whatever his name is, who's actually picked up an injury in training as well. I think I saw.
He did.
I saw. So yeah, look. On the Ugochukwu one, I'd agree, but generally speaking, mate, now we're at the opposite end of the spectrum where we are being. I understand why we're being cautious, but I think we've gone too far in our cautiousness. I think we're being overly cautious.
Yeah, I hear that.
Which I can understand, but it's difficult to find that balance given our injury record and given what keeps happening. But I almost feel like we're being too overcautious.
Can you give an example on which players you think that's what we're doing?
I don't want to say Nkunku, but I've got a feeling that he definitely maybe could have played a week or so before.
But there is also people saying that he shouldn't have even played in December, and we should have arguably waited until January full stop.
Well, this is the thing. The thing is, none of us really know. No, we can have sort of some thoughts on it, but ultimately, you'd rather us be overprotective because then it's. If they go back too early, everyone's raging. It's like, well, why have we been so stupid and played him too soon? So it's kind of a lose-lose situation. You get accused of bringing him back too soon, and you get called stupid for doing that, or you get accused of being overly cautious and taking too long. It's almost like you can't win. But I'd much rather take too long than rush players back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, just to quickly go through it, the injury list for this game consists of 11 players. Badiashile, he is back in full training, should be back soon.
That's for the reconditioning. I don't even know what that means. We're not going to see.
I take that as regaining match fitness.
Yeah, I mean, those first three, we won't see any of them in the squad tomorrow. Even though they're in full team training, there's no chance any of them are in the squad.
No, absolutely. But I think all these players named here, they will miss tomorrow's game. It's still good to see Ben Chilwell because he's obviously been out for long. That he's in full training. He's been in full training for nearly a week now. So I think we will see him fairly soon, at least as a sub. Not tomorrow, maybe not on the weekend, but maybe Middlesbrough at home potentially, depending on how the first leg also goes. Chukwuemeka, obviously his injury situation has been very questionable. What has happened there? Because he was back on the bench twice. Didn't come on. Or maybe
he was on the bench at Burnley away. I seem to remember. He didn't come on.
Was not to be seen again until so far. It's crazy.
Mate, he was meant to be out. He was meant to be out for 4 weeks roughly.
Yeah. Which was always a bit, which you could always question instantly because he had surgery. How many surgeries do you recover from within 4
No,
months?
I don't know what I think the surgery is described as minor or something. But yeah, like that was an injury in August that should have been out for around 4 to 6 weeks or something like that. We're in January and he's still not back. The guy's been out September, October, November. The guy's been out for nearly 5 months.
Yeah, literally. And I do agree with what Bushi said here, by the way. You touched on it there. We're being cautious with some players, but that means because of how many injuries we have, other players are being overplayed in return.
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
More injuries.
It's a negative cycle. You're being overly cautious, and I can understand why with players coming back. But by being overly cautious, or then, as he says, you're overplaying other players and potentially increasing their chances of getting injured.
Exactly. I mean,
so you're sort of in a never-ending kind of.
Go on.
You're kind of just in a negative cycle on that front, aren't you? While you're being cautious of the players you're trying to get back, then the guys that are playing are probably playing more than you'd ideally want them to play. But they have to because you haven't really got the options to switch much up. So yeah, I get it. It is a bit of a difficult cycle.
No, exactly. I mean, EPL Turf says Carney had a reaction on same injury in training. It's true, but should that keep him out for 3 extra months?
Mate, the setback is worse than the original injury. I'm convinced.
Maybe in this case we can't blame our own medical staff. Maybe in this case whoever did surgery on him is the problem. But
I've got no way of quantifying it because obviously he hasn't come out or anything. But for me, there's the setback must have been way worse than the original injury.
Yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, we move on. Obviously, Nkunku, we touched on. Chalobah, I still don't believe that he's actually injured, but that's
he's back out on the pitch. There's a picture of him today.
Obviously, but I think he's been back on the pitch for weeks. There's every now and again.
Something's not making sense about that. This was a guy that was meant to have missed a month with a slight hamstring strain from pre-season.
And by the way, I'm absolutely adamant that Trevoh Chalobah is better than Axel Disasi. I'm absolutely adamant of that.
I don't know if better, but what I would say is it's not a significant upgrade. It is at all. It's one of them ways.
Disasi has not had any game as good as we've already seen from Chalobah. I'm not saying he's maybe not more consistent. That may be the case for Disasi, but he's older, so you'd flip and expect him to be more consistent, right?
He's only a year. He's actually only a year older. I think Disasi's only 25. He's actually a year older. He's not actually.
When did Chalobah turn 24?
Last year.
Okay. Well, Disasi turns 26 in March. Let me see Chalobah.
Chalobah probably turned 25 at some point this year, I think.
Yeah, he turns 25 in July, to be fair. So it is only a year.
There's not an awful lot.
Disasi paid more. Right.
Yeah, bro, I get what you're saying. Like, I at the time didn't think it was a necessary signing. Look, he's done better than I think a lot of people would have expected him to do. And I don't dislike him or anything like that. But yeah, you'd have to look at. For me, I'd look at that one. I think this whole Chalobah situation was very avoidable. We didn't really need to sign Disasi. With the emergence of Gilchrist, I know he's still young and hasn't played that much, but I think Chalobah could have done. Let's put it this way: I don't think Chalobah does a significantly worse job than what Disasi's doing at the moment.
No, exactly. And can I also say this? People might not be aware. Chalobah is taller than Disasi. Let's just be clear about that. Chalobah is taller than Disasi. He might not be as good in the air because obviously Chalobah is quite slender while Disasi is quite hench. So there is in physicality, there's still a difference, and I get that. But Chalobah is definitely quicker. Chalobah is definitely better on the ball, and Chalobah is definitely more reliable in positioning, in my opinion, because Disasi is sometimes all over the shop. Now, sure, that might be adapting to the league and the country. Fair enough. And again, I'm not saying Disasi is awful. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say he's not better than Chalobah. So the whole signing was pointless because I am still baffled to the fact as to how anyone at Chelsea thinks we can sell Chalobah now and actually get any money for him. The dude hasn't played in 6 months. Who will buy him? Relevant.
I don't understand where those Bayern Munich loan links came from because
ridiculous.
we've got. It's fine because he's a homegrown player. It doesn't count towards the 7 slots. That's the rule, which is why Maatsen.
Yeah, but only if they're under 21. I think it only counts for someone like Maatsen.
But Maatsen's 21 though.
If you're home, but they still count as within under 21. Does that make sense? So if you're homegrown and under 21, you don't count as the 7 internationals.
I
think Chalobah would. I think, but
Yeah, well, I mean, if that is the case, then obviously those Bayern Munich links that returned with a loan deal make zero sense. Because
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if we terminate some of the international loans, but depending on what's necessary, I suppose. I mean, Mabedi says, "How about our manager didn't want Chalobah?" I don't care. The manager is an idiot then if he thinks Disasi is better. I'm sorry.
I don't think that Poch was someone that would have said, "Oh, I don't want Chalobah." Look,
he's literally made Gallagher the main guy in the team. I don't think he's going to have an issue with Chalobah.
Chalobah was captain in pre-season.
Chalobah is a good player. Like, people think Chalobah is bad. Chalobah looked bad sometimes when he was constantly forced to play out at right back.
But to be fair, though, I think
Chalobah is centre back where he shouldn't be playing either.
Probably a better right back than Disasi, I'd say,
without a doubt. Without a doubt, in my opinion. But regardless, just to finish this off, who knows when Cucurella is back? Fofana, I mean, he's training, as in on the pitch, but
yeah, we saw pictures of him on the grass like a month or so ago, and it's obviously closer. But I think but he was ruled out.
Still don't think we'll see him before March.
No, he was ruled out for the whole season for a reason. So ultimately, anything before that is a bonus. But let's not get excited because we expected not to see him. So let's kind of stick with that.
Exactly. Reece James, obviously, we know. Romeo Lavia, a bit questionable. Not really sure when he'll be back. Shouldn't be too long, but we don't know for sure. Robert Sanchez had a scan on his knee today to make a final assessment whether he can now return to training or whether he has to continue rehabilitation. So that we'll find out more before the next game, I guess. And Ugochukwu was last week said to be out for 6 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah.
That is just fantastic, isn't it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That 6 weeks will probably turn into about 12.
Exactly. And just to quickly touch on something from the press conference today as well, let me just quickly bring Pice's tweet about it up. Because obviously the striker situation with now Nkunku being out and Nicolas Jackson being at the African Cup of Nations, he was asked, well, do you need a striker now? And Poch said, well, Palmer can play up front, obviously Broja. But also he did say in this press conference, as far as he is aware, we do not need to sell before we can buy. So that is interesting. I always thought that, but
I always thought that was the case as well, and I'd seen that was the case. I think they just, looking to sell those players. I think just to, just to make sure they're, 100% coherent with the profit and sustainability rules. But I think we are. But I guess that you can never be overly sure.
Exactly. I mean, the fact that they want to sell Gallagher so badly and people like Chalobah so badly, that's what makes it look like that. But I don't think that's necessarily for an immediate solution to financial issues. That's more of a long-term thinking to not get into financial problems. That's how I see that as But by the way, just Boshi, to be clear, Chalobah is only 2 centimeters, so not even an inch taller than Disasi. So I'm not saying there's much in it, but Disasi isn't taller than Chalobah. That's all I was trying to say. But yeah, just 2 quick ones. N'Golo Kante is getting a permanent banner at Stamford Bridge in the shed end, which I'm a fantastic, brilliant fan of.
Why not?
Exactly, absolutely deserves it. Quickly, I don't have a slide to get ready for this now, but thoughts on this Gallagher banner situation?
What is it? Will it just be a display for one game?
I think so.
I don't really have that much of a problem with it. I think, I get it that people have got a massive issue with it. I mean, just need to get out and do more.
You know where I think the issue stems from is that the account We Are the Shed a couple of years ago gave as a reason as to why Kante hadn't got a banner, but Mason Mount did, was, for example, attachment to the club, how long has he been here, blah, blah, blah. And that's why Kante didn't get one. And now Gallagher gets one by the same people. That's why it's a bit strange. But let's be real, right? If we're being honest, the real reason is Conor Gallagher is almost the figurehead of the anti-Clear Lake movement, right?
Yeah, he's been
within the fan base. He almost represents the fans that don't like Clear Lake. They like Gallagher. That's almost, he is the figurehead for it. So it's not we want to praise Gallagher. It's not about it's about we want Gallagher to stay because he's a homegrown player and we don't want you to sell all homegrown players. I think that's, rather than it being to do with Gallagher as an individual, it's about that he represents what the fans are not happy with the Clear Lake are doing. I'm not sure if you see it the same, but that's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, possibly, mate. Possibly for sure. I don't know. I think, mate, of all the things to get bothered about, a fucking banner for one game. I mean, why are we wasting energy? Why are people wasting energy on that. It's one
display.
But
it was. I felt the same when they were like people having a go at making a Mount banner. Who cares? Just let them make a banner.
Why are people so bothered about a banner? Like if it was a permanent thing, then yeah, I could absolutely understand it being the outrage being more justified. But a little display before a game. I mean, seriously, is this what people, with all the stuff that's going on with the club at the moment, people are choosing to get fucked off about a Gallagher display in the shed for one game? I mean,
it's a bit strange, isn't it?
It's honestly,
it's a bit strange. Let me just do this quickly. The last thing I want to highlight, which is something I didn't know was a thing. Mykhailo Mudryk was named round of the Carabao Cup quarterfinals. Since when is that a thing?
Mate, I had no idea they even did that. I mean, to be fair, we've not really, I don't think we've really made it. We haven't made it for a while to these sorts of latter rounds in the Cups. But I didn't know it was a thing, mate.
But
yeah, I didn't know it was a thing.
It's a bit, because also, but like, obviously I didn't see all the other games, but Mudryk didn't really have a great game until he scored that last. Did he even start?
He came on with about 10, 15 minutes left.
Yeah, and scored the equaliser and was a great goal and everything. But
and scored in the shootout. But yeah, to play, I mean, to be honest, mate, whatever the other quarterfinals were, like clearly no one must have played that well. If you get,
literally.
But not complaining.
No, exactly. We'll take it. Does that get him a special card on FIFA? I don't know. Let's get into the lineup. I'm doing something a bit different here because we're for predicted lineup. I feel like we can have images. So in here, it will show images rather than just the name. So it's a bit more to it. Let me know if you like how it looks. Let me know if you don't. Obviously, there's a few differences that we can choose in terms of the pitch can look different. You know, it can be blue, it can be dark green, it can be like Premiership, you know, the purple and green. But we're playing Carabao Cup, so we can't use that. Vintage, you know, looks quite interesting. I'll go with classic for now, but if people have suggestions, please come at me. I will go with a 4-2-3-1. Charlie, what we're doing today is a predicted 11. So obviously in goal, that's not really
goalkeeper picks itself. Yeah,
exactly. Just quickly on that, as we put Petrovic in, has Petrovic also surprised and impressed you? Like honestly,
I think so, mate. Because I was kind of blank canvas with Petrovic. I'd never heard of him before we signed him. I'd never watched a single minute of him playing, and I was kind of just intrigued to see what he was like. Obviously, he had to wait for Sanchez to get injured to get his opportunity. And I think he's done very well, mate. You know, I think he's made some great saves. He seems to be a decent shot stopper. He's very calm with the ball at his feet. I don't get that sense of nervousness as I do with Sanchez on the ball at the back. Distribution seems decent. I just think an all-round solid goalkeeper. And what he has done is given himself a massive opportunity of being the number one this season. And for me, he's given the manager a genuine decision to have to make now.
I completely agree. I genuinely don't think that when Sanchez comes back, he should come back in. Like Petrovic, okay, his first game when he came on for Sanchez against Everton, he did make a bit of a mistake for that goal. But otherwise, since then, he hasn't made a mistake. Now, maybe you can argue for the second goal against Luton that he saved and then it fell kind of across his own goal and then they put it in from there. Maybe he should have done a little bit better on that, but it's not a howler. And when I think back, Sanchez made a howler nearly every game. Not all of them led to goals. No, but nearly every game, he gave the ball to the opponent within 20 yards of our own goal.
Yeah.
And Petrovic hasn't done that once. He did it once against Preston where he punted it to them. But even that was like 30, 40 meters away from goal. So not necessarily like in danger of costing us. So, yeah, fair play to him, honestly.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate.
There you go. Like Vic says, Gilchrist in all positions. I agree. Gilchrist in all positions. On a serious note, I think both in predicted 11 and maybe even in my team, I think tomorrow leave Gilchrist out.
He won't play tomorrow, in my opinion. Not
maybe if tomorrow we do really well and like win 2 or 3-0, maybe he starts the return leg.
I think he'll come on, but for me, mate, there's no way he's starting. I think I think personally, if we're predicting the team, I think Colwell goes back to left back and Gusto plays right back.
I agree.
And then it's Disasi and Silva in the middle because Badiashile's not fit. So this back four is actually, there's not really much of a conversation. Even if we're doing what we wanted to see, I actually don't think it would be any different from what Poch is going to pick just because of what's available.
I agree.
This is what's available, mate.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's literally not another...
Unless Gilchrist, but Gilchrist is not going to play over Gusto at fullback or over any of those guys at centre half.
Yeah, exactly. So, can I move them? Nope. Can I move you?
No.
No. Okay. Well, imagine Silva is the left centre back and Disasi right centre back. You get the point. I didn't know which centre back was going to be which. I mean, but yeah, I agree. Like, there's not really much of a question. What else are you going to do? Like you say, Badiashile ain't fit. So unless you play Gilchrist, you don't have another option anyway, which is part of the shocking problem. Because
I mean, the only other thing you might think of is would he play the same back four against Preston? But I think not. Given Silva came on, he didn't start. He's obviously going to start this game. So look, you're not. This is what it's going to be.
Exactly. I mean, obviously, theoretically, Ian Maatsen could play left back, but he hasn't so far. He will most likely leave this window. That's not happening.
That Dortmund deal probably be done this week anyway, so I'll be surprised if he's even in the squad.
Exactly. But yeah, moving up to the midfield again. Lavia not fit. Ugochukwu not fit. Unless you're playing Gallagher in the pivot, that's only two players to pick, really. Isn't it?
It's going to be the same two players. It'll be Enzo and Caicedo.
Exactly. So let's see which one is the left one now. Enzo Fernandez. This one is the left one, so you got it right for one. And Caicedo on the other side.
Yeah.
There's not much more to it. They just need to play together a little bit better. But at the same time, the more they play together, the better it will get, I hope.
I hope so as well.
But yeah, there's not much to really say. Like, yeah, we're playing a championship team, but obviously it's a cup semi-final. But even if we wanted to rotate, unless you're bringing a midfielder on, and the one Castledine, who's the most likely and the closest to it from the academy, he's not fit. He got injured. So what can you do? Number 10 then, mate. That's kind of the first one where there's
it's going to be It's going to be Gallagher. It's going to be Gallagher. It's like it could be a question mark if it's our own teams. We know it's going to be Conor Gallagher. It's not.
Even in our own teams, really shouldn't be a question mark. But now there is a little bit of a question mark. You've got Mudryk,
but now there's a problem here because for me, Madueke, Palmer, and Mudryk all deserve to be playing, but one of them has to miss out. And if I'm going to be honest,
he's playing Palmer up front, but I expect it to be Broja.
I think it'll be Broja as well. I think given he got the goal, I think he'll get another chance.
Yeah.
For me, mate, as harsh as it seems, Cole Palmer must play. So that's one of those spaces gone. And as much as Madueke deserves to play, so
Madueke is going to play on the left and Palmer is going to play on the right. So, Madueke is going to play on the left and Palmer is going to play on the left. So, really, this is all you're getting.
And I think it'll be Mudryk, mate.
Although, I agree. I don't think it will be Sterling. I know Sterling had a pretty decent game last game. I scored a banger free kick. But I still think it will be Mudryk. Now, I wouldn't be shocked if it is Sterling. I wouldn't be shocked by it.
I wouldn't be shocked. Equally, mate, I wouldn't be shocked if it was Palmer and Madueke and Mudryk and Sterling are on the bench.
No, because I don't see how... Because I don't think he's going to play Madueke on the left. And I don't think he's going to play Palmer on the left. So I don't really see how... Unless Palmer plays as the 10, I don't think how it can be them two.
I mean, do we think there's a possibility that Enzo, having played 90 minutes... maybe gets rested? Do we think is there a chance that maybe it's a Gallagher Caicedo pivot and then Palmer plays in the 10 and you can put Noni on the right?
You know what? Maybe.
And I'm not saying that Enzo's can't play two games in a short space of time, but is there a possibility that one of Enzo or Caicedo is on the bench and it becomes a Gallagher in a pivot with one of them, and then you can play an extra attacking player as such?
Yeah. No, it's absolutely possible. It's possible. I mean, you can say the same for Caicedo.
I know we're just presuming that we're going to see this, but there's a part of me that thinks maybe, mate, that we could see one of Caicedo or Enzo miss out because they both started the game on Saturday. I know, obviously, this one's more important. You go with your strongest team, but I mean, for me, mate.
Let's say this does happen. All right, let's just fall.
We go Palmer in the 10 and Madueke on the right.
But then, do you think it would be Madueke or Sterling on the right if Palmer starts as the 10 in terms of what you pick? Because I think he picks Sterling, which is criminal, but I think he does. Yeah. But for me, all day long, it should be Madueke. Yeah, no, I do agree. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't really like Madueke's performance coming off the bench last game. I think it was very selfish.
I don't think it was awful.
No, he wasn't bad, but I think it was very selfish. And if he wasn't as selfish, he would have set up 2 goals. Instead, he went for 2 goals himself and failed to score both of them.
I hear that.
That's all I'm trying to say. I mean, Joab is saying here, sorry, Caicedo could be rested. He's played a lot recently. If Enzo is fitter or also fit, maybe it's Caicedo that gets a rest. But for this type of game against the championship team, you need your physical players. So you need Caicedo a bit more than you need Enzo, in my opinion, for this. Less selfish than Sterling, not in the last game. I disagree with that. And obviously in comparison to how long they played. Now, again, it might just be Enzo and Gallagher is the 10 and then Palmer plays on the right. And then it is between Mudryk and Sterling for the left-hand side. Could well be the case. Both are possible. We've got this up now. We had the other one up earlier. Charlie, we'll finish it off with a score prediction. What do you reckon tomorrow? Do you think we'll do half the job already tomorrow? Or do you think we'll leave a lot left to be done for the second leg?
I think I don't see us, I mean, what do we classify as job done in the first leg? Do we classify 2-0 as job done? For me, mate, for me,
honestly, any win is job done for me tomorrow.
Yeah, you think so? For me personally, mate.
No, I mean not in job done as in guaranteed qualification.
Oh, but no, if I'm saying job done, guaranteed we're through, we have to win by 3 goals tomorrow. If we win by 3 goals tomorrow, then that's job done. Mm-hmm. A couple goals. It almost is, but you concede 1 and then it's very much game back on. So for me, mate, I think this will be closer than people expect, but I think we can keep another clean sheet. There's no VAR tomorrow, so we've got to be careful. And I'm going to go for a 2-0 win.
Yeah, I think a 2-0 is about right. You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say I was about to say 3-1, but then again, first legs are quite unlikely to end in 3-1s, aren't they? Because really all that Borough want to do, I know they're at home tomorrow, but really all they want to do is take it to a second leg to still have a chance. That's what they're going into tomorrow, right? I mean, a bit like us against Real Madrid, right? We went into that hoping to still have a game in the second leg.
Yeah, they just want to have they just want to give themselves a chance still.
Yeah. You know what? I think we're going to win 2-1. I think we're going to concede 1 because maybe a late one, which will give them a lot of hope, which will mean we have to take the second leg a bit more seriously. So maybe it's not the worst thing. But hey, maybe my initial thought was right and we will win 3-1. I'd absolutely take a 3-1. 2-0, 3-1. Any 2-goal difference win, I'll be pretty happy.
I'll take any win.
No, of course. But if it's by 2 goals, then I'm extra happy. Shall I say. There you go. I think it's about time to wrap this one up. Ladies and gentlemen, please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like button. That would be massively appreciated. Please do check out Charlie's channel. You can see it on screen at Blue Brother CFC on YouTube. Link is down in the description as well. So, of course, check that out too. As well as his Twitter, which is also linked down in the description. Give him a follow over there. And, of course, while you're at it, if you don't follow me on Twitter yet, please do so as well. But, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up to Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we will see you next time.